Order. Tom Hears to move the motion.
Thank you for the opportunity to lead this important Westminster Hall debate on the future of playgrounds under your chairship. Growing our economy, fixing our public services and securing our unity as a country are serious issues to consider, serious goals to pursue. We need to be on the side of working people. We also need to be on the side of playing children. We need to be as serious about the play of children as we are about the work of adults. And if anyone listening is in doubt, this is because our country has trivialised play for too long. I am astonished that there has only ever been one national play strategy launched 17 years ago. I am astonished that this debate is the first to happen in 8 years and at an hour the longest for 17 years. Is it any wonder that people feel pushed out by politics and disaffected by democracy when playgrounds are so ignored that they have been left to fall to pieces, miss large pieces of equipment and largely exclude children with special educational needs and disabilities? Is it any wonder that our playgrounds are rotting when our Parliament barely discusses them and the last government to invest in them, a Labour government, did so 17 years ago, only for its £235 million programme to be cut 3 years later by the coalition government? Why does it matter so much for this new Labour government to help children to play? Well, let me tell you in the words of my constituents. I launched a survey before Christmas once we had confirmed this debate, and we sought this debate following a roundtable with local parents. And I'm pleased to see a constituent who attended that roundtable, Anne-Marie Burr, here today. Anne-Marie has also helped to launch the Our Spaces BCP Facebook group, which brings parents together to campaign for better play equipment. My survey has received 642 responses, and I want to thank everyone who has shared their views. I've read every response, and I've read every comment on this on Facebook and Instagram. Minister, it is time to take you on a tour of beautiful Bournemouth and their viewpoints. The first point, the main thing that parents tell me they want for their children from their playgrounds, is a place to grow, to learn, to experiment, to push themselves, to learn alongside others and be free of a screen-obsessed childhood. Neem from Springbourne says it well. Creativity is built in these free spaces where parents create their games and realities. Neem's daughter was obsessed with the monkey bars. I can relate. They have built capabilities that Neem knows only a playground could have built. For Skye and Folkestone, playgrounds give children a safe place to play and explore. For Natalie in Southbourne, unstructured free play helps children develop in many ways, including their cognitive development. And Charlotte, also in Southbourne, agrees. Playgrounds are essential for child development. Playgrounds provide critical space for imaginative play in the view of Chloe in Springbourne, Susie, Milo and Lily May in Southbourne, Louise and Kelly in East Southbourne, Christine and Lucy and Amy both in Queen's Park, and Angela in Muscliffe and Verity in Tuckton. Mark in Littledown talks about the joy that his young children feel when they play and when they develop as they play. They love to go to the park. It's a good thing for them to do. It develops them both physically and in terms of engaging with other children. Thomas in Southbourne sees the same joy in his children's play. Good playground equipment helps children to develop physical skills like bounce and grip, but most of all, they're fun. My second point is that in a cost of living crisis, playgrounds give families places to spend time at no cost. Joanne in Muscliffe is right to say that they provide free activity, and this is echoed by Nicole in Moordown, Louise in Charminster, Laura in Springbourne, Sarah in Iford, Victoria also in Muscliffe, Victoria in Folkestone and Candice in Tuckton. And a third point raised by residents is that playgrounds are vital outdoor spaces for parents and families who don't have space at home. Stephanie in Littledown and Iford says it well. For some children, they do not have access to outdoor space at home, and playgrounds are vital for the health of this group of children. Kimberly in Muscliffe agrees that playgrounds provide a place to go and meet others when lots of children don't have access to a garden or the kind of equipment that is in a playground. And Rachel in Muscliffe says it brilliantly. We need safe outdoor spaces for our children to be able to enjoy. It helps with reducing isolation. And when the world of children is constantly shrinking, this is even more important. Sadly, we have some politicians who tell children to get outside more, when it's not fair to criticise them for spending time on their screens, enjoying play in the only way they know how, because it's usually the same politicians who have forced them through policies and funding cuts to shrink their worlds to their homes, or even worse, to the smartphone in their hand. When playgrounds are being locked up or sold off, when parents lack safe outdoor spaces, where is left for children to go? As Alice in Boscombe says, how can we keep our kids away from screens when playgrounds are broken, unattractive a lot of times unkept and dirty. And the consequence. Parents know that fewer of the social skills that children need to acquire as adults will be acquired through the scrolling of bottomless social media feeds. Anyone who has seen a 2-year-old master the touch and swipe interface of a smartphone knows that we risk more and more children at younger and younger ages spending more and more hours scrolling through bottomless feeds. Parents are concerned. Helen in Southbourne says that with the rise of screen time in the younger generation, we as adults must provide exciting, enjoyable and affordable alternatives. Sian in Springbourne says that we need playgrounds so children aren't stuck behind screens all day. Young brains are being rewired. We want children to be children because it's a good thing in its own right, but we must keep in mind that the growing number of children hooked on social media today may be the growing number of patients of mental health services and economically inactive adults, contributing less in tax to the Treasury while increasing demand on already strained publicly funded services. Just as our predecessors in Parliament passed legislation beginning more than a century ago to protect children against work-based childhoods, so we can pass the Safer Phones Bill to make smartphones less addictive for children. My fifth point is that playgrounds are important places for children with special educational needs and their carers. When our lack of play spaces shrinks the world of children, it particularly shrinks the world of children with special educational needs and disabilities. Terry from Springbourne has told me that after her autistic daughter's school were unable to meet her needs, she ended up home educating her. The local park is the place where she can socialise, get the fresh air she wants and exercise. She genuinely looks forward to our daily park time. Catherine from Boscombe. She says aside from children's physical development, it's also a place that children and parents can go when mental health takes a dive. As a mum of children with SEN, this is essential to our daily routine. And Terry from Muscliffe says there is barely any accessible play equipment in our local area for children with complex needs. If a child uses a wheelchair, there is nothing that they can do in parks. You'll be pleased to know that I'm coming to the last of my points. Point 6. Playgrounds also help to end the isolation that parents can feel. It's not just children who can benefit. As Anna from Southbourne says, on lower, more exhausted days, I've had some really special moments of connection with parents. I don't know in playgrounds while our children play. For Matthew from Springbourne, playgrounds offer a place to meet friends and other parents alike. Laura, also from Springbourne, says that the social and psychological value of play parks as part of the fabric of a healthy community should not be underestimated. As a parent to my young daughter, the park was often the only place I might interact with other adults and parents on a given day, and it was a nexus for exchanging local information and support. And most heartbreakingly, Mary from Queen's Park says that playgrounds can be a lifeline for mothers in distress. I have met mothers who are escaping domestic abuse, poor housing, depression, loneliness, or just need a change. In an age of isolation, polarisation and insecurity, society can be reinvigorated in the playgrounds of our country. Democracy is made in the playgrounds and given new life among the monkey bars, the swings and the slides and between strangers on benches. Parents may have their children as the unifying feature at first, but over time all kinds of conversations bubble up on that bench that otherwise would not have happened. This Parliament can only be as strong as our playgrounds. And that brings me to what... I will give way.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way, and you're making an excellent progress. I love the 6 points that you've given us. I'm happy to say that my constituency has a number of historic parks, like Alexandra Park and the Platfield Parks. However, of course, as you are pointing out, a third of the British young people don't have access to any nearby playgrounds, and that surely is not acceptable. So does my honourable friend agree that we need to increase access to nature and green spaces for children and young people for their better and stronger emotional and physical well-being?
Thank you very much. I could not agree more with my honourable friend, and he's a champion for play in his area. Yeah. In Bournemouth East, we have 35% of contact with a play area, which is a significant problem. I know it's worse around the country. And now, Minister, I'd like to ask if you could help. First, as we have an hour to begin this debate, I invite you to meet with Eugene Minogue from Play England here today, visiting Bournemouth residents like Anne-Marie and myself to take this matter further. Second, this is unfinished business for Labour. Ed Balls and Andy Burnham, whatever happened to them, published that first national play strategy for England 17 years ago. Much of that strategy stands up today. It is the view of important leaders of the sector and myself that it could be dusted off. Minister, you could be the new Andy Burnham You could be the new Ed Balls. You could help people to strictly keep playing. The Minister and the Treasury may be reassured to know that a strategy does not necessarily require significant additional funding. All we need are changes to policy which will better spend the money already in the system. Third, I would be eager to discuss this at more length, but the Government could implement play sufficiency legislation for English children to achieve equality with Welsh and Scottish children. A perfect opportunity to do so exists with the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, and this was in Play England's general election manifesto. The Government could give playgrounds the same status as sports facilities by extending Sport England's remit to cover play areas, so that consideration of playgrounds become a statutory duty just like sports facilities. And following this Government's welcome change to paragraph 104, section 8 of the NPPF, which provides protection for formal play spaces, I would love to work with the Minister to bring this into meaningful practice. Lastly, I would urge the Government to mandate local authorities to map play facilities, both the current state and quality, something that BCP Council has done voluntarily, not because they were mandated. And I wish to commend BCP Council for agreeing a new strategy, the plan for play, and I'm not doing that purely because the Liberal Democrat spokesperson is the last leader of that council and about to respond. Lastly, I really just want to commend local councillors across Bournemouth East, in particular Sharon Carr-Brown, who has been advocating for play areas in her ward of Queen's Park and Charminster, and indeed it reflects the advocacy of Sharon and her co-councillor for the ward to be focused upon. We're soon to see a £75,000 grant funding bid going in this week, and if successful, that would be flexibly spent in the ward. Good news for Cyril Gardens rather. It's about to see the replacement of a long broken toddler swing, which just goes to show that when you campaign, you can get things done. I want to close that just by saying this. In 1999, Tony Blair said that if we are in the politics for one thing, it is to make sure that all children are given the best chance of life. In 2024, Keir Starmer said, arguably nothing says more about the state of a nation than the well-being of its children. We've had such consistency over so many decades. Now is the opportunity for this government to finish the business of the last Labour government. I want to support this government as it supports Bournemouth children and families to improve their well-being, and we could do no better than to start with this long overdue, once-in-a-generation improvement of playgrounds. Thank you.
I remind members that they should bob if they wish to be called in this debate, and also that I will be calling the front benches just around 5:10. The question is that this House has considered the provision of playgrounds by local authorities. I now call Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. An absolute pleasure to speak in this, and I'll restrict myself to the time limit and ensure that others can make it as well. First of all, can I commend the Honourable Gentleman for Bournemouth East for setting the scene so opportunistic, should say, and to discuss this. If we ask any councillor in any borough in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland about playground provision, they will tell you it's the greatest issue, one of the greatest issues, after dogfighting, of course, it's one of the greatest issues that people will have in their lifetime, not simply in terms of securing funding for a play park, but the upkeep and the need for greater provision of disabled access equipment, and particularly for those who are disabled. It happens all the time. I commend, Madam Chair, those of my constituency, and I used to be a councillor for 26 years and before I became an assembly member and then came to here. So I understand where the responsibility lies, but I also understand that sometimes community power can make a difference. My council, Ards and North Down Council, were to close the play park in Kirkcudbright, but community power made the difference. They campaigned heavily, and at the end of the day, their case was won justifiably. The play strategy for my local council highlights that is recognised that the ability to play should be available to all regardless of age, gender or ability. The delivery of a fixed and non-fixed play provision should ensure that all needs are catered for. And as a minimum, 30% of equipment in fixed play areas should be classified as inclusive. Therefore, everyone can use it. There should be a reasonable balance of play equipment suitable for younger children, those in the 3 to 6 group and those in the 7 to 12 years old group. This is much easier said than done, of course. Whilst it's great that councils have their own play strategies, the piecemeal approach does mean a postcode lottery. So I suppose the question I want to ask, given a Northern Ireland perspective to this, of course, and to the Minister, is we need not a postcode lottery, we need a strategy, a policy, a regulation across all of the council areas. 97% of teachers say that outdoor play is critical for children who reach their full potential. I have 6 grandchildren. The biggest girl, she's 15. She plays in the local football team. I can tell you that the sport and the outdoor activity of my 6 grandchildren, aged from 14 or 15 right down to the age of 2, is so important. It boosts social skills. It gives the opportunity to children to let off steam. And with the recent worrying news of some 70,000 children in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland are suffering as a result of inadequate mental health support, adventurous outdoor play is more important than ever. And for those who have autism, who are educationally challenged, whether it be ADHD or indeed dyslexia or any of the other educational issues, it's really important. I would ask them if there are any plans or intentions to deliver funding to councils to enable them to meet obligations and to ensure that children in every area of the United Kingdom where the Minister has responsibility, but in discussions as he has regularly with Northern Ireland, to meet with other children, to learn new skills, to push themselves into new experiences. I believe it's imperative, Madam Chair, and we must prioritise it. And as such, the laughter, well, just one quick point, this Christmas was special. All Christmases are special, but this one was better for our family, for my wife and I. My youngest son, his wife, are staying with us, and the 4-year-old, the 2-year-old. The wee boy at 2-year-old smiles all the time. And there wouldn't be a day, Madam Chair, when he smiles at you, even though I may feel not smiling, that it gives you a lift. So when it comes to the laughter of children, it is priceless. But there is a price to be paid to achieve it, and we must be prepared to stand over it. Thank you so much.
We're going to have to now impose a 4-minute time limit. Lee Ingham.
Thank you very much to my honourable friend for securing this debate on a really important issue, because every child deserves the opportunity to play, not only for their health, but to foster a sense of connection within their local community. This includes children with special educational needs and disabilities. Ensuring that our playgrounds are sufficient and inclusive is not simply a matter of infrastructure, it's a matter of fairness and compassion. I'm concerned that there aren't enough accessible parks, and that those that are accessible aren't similarly accessible for neurodiverse children. To truly cater for SEND children, both with physical disabilities and neurodiversity, playground design must go beyond a stick and plaster approach. We need well thought out, fit for purpose equipment that prioritises sensory play and safety. This includes sensory equipment, items that are both functional and inviting, and spaces that are designed to reduce overstimulation. In my own constituency of Stafford, Eccleshall and the Villagers, I've been working with some SEND campaigners, parents themselves, Becky, Shannon and Jess, and I'd like to pay tribute to their hard work. They are particularly concerned for the safety of neurodiverse children in playgrounds. When a neurodiverse child is overstimulated, they sometimes want to run, and parents are finding themselves having to resort to harnesses to keep their children safe. The campaigners believe that high, sturdy metal fences, much like those in Victoria Park in my own constituency, are essential for children that sometimes run, similar to those you see particularly around old Victorian parks in lots of our constituencies. These fences provide security for parents and carers, reducing the need for uncomfortable measures like harnesses. Because the emotional toll of exclusion is profound. Parents of neurodiverse children often describe feeling ostracised when playgrounds fail to accommodate their needs or their children's needs, and without adequate sensory equipment to secure calming spaces, neurodiverse children may struggle to engage, leading to further isolation for both the child and the family. Parents have told me they've received comments and judgments from friends and family for using harnesses with their children. So alongside parents in my constituency, I've recently been engaging with New Life, which is a charity for disabled children. They provide equipment and resources to parents of children with disabilities, and they told me about the exhaustion of parents who turn to them for with their experiences. Playgrounds aren't just play areas for exercise and for fun, but social hubs both for children and for parents. And many parents love that moment to sit, have a chat with other parents, and let their children have fun while they can have a chat. Caring for a child with special needs can already be exhausting and isolating. And it's not just SEND children that deserve community, it's their parents as well. More accessible playgrounds would open the world up to these families, and I think it's imperative that we give them access to that opportunity. Thank you.
Helen Maguire.
back, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I congratulate the Honourable Member for Bournemouth East for securing this important debate. So this issue matters personally to me. As a mother of 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, I've watched each of my children grow through unstructured play, and indeed we chose to live near a park because I recognise the importance of parks and outdoor play. And so I want to ensure that every child across the country, and indeed future generations of children to come, have the same opportunities to play as my children have had. And as the former chair of a charity locally that ran the local recreation ground, I know how important spaces like playgrounds are as hubs for the community. As policymakers, we often focus on the physical education of our children, but playgrounds are so much more than just about exercise. It's where children learn to navigate risk, build relationships and develop the resilience that will serve them for life. Yet according to the 2024 Green Space Index, 2.3 million children in Britain under the age of 9, nearly 1/3, live more than a 10-minute walk from their nearest playground. This is a stark indicator of a growing play crisis in our country. Playgrounds are vital spaces where children explore their world and themselves through play. They develop social skills, creativity and cognitive abilities. They learn to assess and embrace risk, make decisions and form friendships. Playgrounds are incubators for resilience, teaching children the skills to thrive in a challenging world. As a former Scout leader who led teams on hikes up mountains, I've seen children how giving them the chance to push themselves through outdoor physical challenges really builds their self-esteem. Climbing to a mountain and being scared of being at the top there and just, and then realising when they've achieved it how successful and how brilliant that's been. And playgrounds offer, this chance for young people to challenge themselves, to climb higher, to swing faster, to jump that little bit further. Yet despite the clear benefits of playgrounds for our youth, local authority budgets for playgrounds have declined drastically, with a 14% fall in annual park funding in England between 2009 and 2020. Nearly 800 playgrounds have been lost since 2013, and some councils now warn they may need to remove or repurpose play areas simply to save money. It's shocking that compared to the 1970s, children now spend 50% less time in unstructured outdoor play, and indeed the 2020 British Children's Play Survey revealed that children aged 5 to 11 spend just over 3 hours a day playing, most of which takes place at home or in the gardens, rather than in nature and community spaces. During this period of playground decline, social media and smartphones have become increasingly pervasive, replacing active play, exploration and in-person socialising with passive scrolling, socialising through their phones and being less physically active. I was a physical trainer for over 15 years and I'm absolutely passionate about encouraging everyone to be more active. As a parent, I volunteered at my local primary school to support them in setting up their running club, and I saw firsthand the positive impact that physical activity has on young people. They were excited to be outside and they love focusing their energy on something other than the stressful homework, and for teachers, when they returned to class, they then felt calm and able to focus. The public health implications of the decline in safe public spaces to play are profound. Over half of children fail to meet the recommended daily activity levels, and 37% of 10 and 11-year-olds in England are now overweight or obese. The mental health impact is equally concerning, with nearly 1 in 5 children having a probable mental health condition. The reduction in access to unstructured outdoor play, alongside the rise in children's access to the digital world, has reshaped childhood, leading to isolation and inactivity. Every child has the right to play, to feel energised and free. Yet the opportunities for this freedom are shrinking. Without urgent action, generations of children will grow up deprived of the spaces that are so essential for their development and well-being. I urge this government to prioritise access to play spaces in planning and funding decisions. Decades of underinvestment and poor planning must be reversed. Play is not just a part of childhood, it's the foundation for healthy, happy and resilient adults.
Idra Costigan.
Thank you, Mrs Lewis-Buck, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And I thank my honourable friend, the member for Bournemouth East, for securing this very important debate. Chair, playgrounds are not just a nice thing to have. They're vital spaces where children grow, learn and thrive. And in densely populated urban constituencies, like Ealing Southall in London, they're often a precious escape from overcrowded homes. But 14 years of a previous Conservative government has seen playgrounds and public spaces suffer under successive cuts. With councils starved of funding, playgrounds became a luxury that councils could barely afford. Budgets for parks were slashed by more than 350 million, and the last Labour government's multi-million-pound playground programme was cancelled. This led to crumbling playgrounds, starved of cash, with councils often having to remove equipment they couldn't afford to repair. and also led to a 15% drop in the number of adventure playgrounds since 2017. The results have been devastating. If you allow me to continue a little. The results have been devastating. Fewer public playgrounds harm children's physical and mental health, stifling their potential before it has a chance to bloom.
Thank you for giving way. And I completely agree that the lack of funding for local authorities' playgrounds has been catastrophic over the last 14 years. In my own constituency, we've had to rely on central government funding to renovate particular playgrounds, in particular Hayden Hill Park, next to Old Hill Cricket Ground, which is fantastic. We've been able to secure the funding through the Towns Fund, thank you, Minister. But I think we do need to ensure that local authorities are focusing on this. Does my honourable friend agree with me that it's not acceptable that sometimes we're relying on central government funding to support playgrounds in the current environment?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and I absolutely agree that we need fair funding for local councils and for playgrounds. Now, access to play is also a fundamental human right. It's written down in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. There should be no argument about it. So it's heartening that this new Labour government has immediately shown its commitment to play as a human right that cannot be denied to our children. Are in some ways actually radical changes to the National Planning Policy Framework will for the first time insist that playgrounds are a consideration in all new developments. It will force developers to provide them if we can back this up with legislation. In this, government has demonstrated a renewed commitment to a child's right to play and their right to be supported through development. I hope this can be followed up by a new national play strategy for England, the first since the last Labour government. Chair, research shows that many playgrounds fail to meet the needs of girls. In one study, 68% of girls said there was nothing for them to do in the playground. Developers often tick the box by putting in a climbing frame, but many girls prefer playground equipment that's social and collaborative, space to chat to their friends. Swings are just one example of this. Our future playgrounds must reflect this inclusivity, offering facilities for all children, and I hope this will be included in the Minister's plans. Now, despite years of funding cuts, Labour-run councils like Ealing, covering my constituency of Ealing Southall, are leading the charge to transform playgrounds and put children at the heart of local plans. Ealing Council has already committed £2 million to renovate a staggering 22 playgrounds across the borough. And this includes Ravener Park, Spikesbridge Park, Southall Park and Lammas Park in West Ealing. Ealing have worked with developers, including the Green Quarter in Southall, to ensure developer-built playgrounds are publicly accessible. And all new projects in Ealing are being assessed to ensure there is a minimum of 50% inclusive play and that refurbishments consider the Make Space for Girls guidance. And in my former role as Deputy Leader of Ealing Council, I championed Play on the Way, where play features like stepping stones on the grass build-outs at the corner of a street and hopscotch marked on the pavement can even weave play into children's walk home from school. But what councils need most of all is secure funding from central government. So this year's 3.5% increase in real terms in council funding, that's £69 billion for councils, is a hugely welcome first step. And I know we'll hear more in the upcoming spending review on this. We need to ensure councils like Ealing can sustain and expand playgrounds, especially in urban areas where green and outdoor spaces are more limited. Playgrounds are not just for children, they're investments in the fabric of our society and our future generations. To continue to achieve this Labour government's mission to break down the barriers to opportunity for every child, we need to keep pushing forward with our radical plans for play. It's time to reverse the damage of the past and create spaces that truly reflect the vibrant, equitable future that we want for our children. Thank you, Chair.
Now need to put a 3-minute time limit on backbench speeches. Shock at Adam.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say it's an absolute pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I would really like to take this opportunity to thank the Honourable Member for Bournemouth East for securing this debate on an important yet overlooked area of playgrounds. Many of the members have already articulated the advantages of playgrounds from provisions for mental health, living in a concrete jungle and physical activity. But in an era where screens dominate our children's attention and social media replaces face-to-face interaction, these playgrounds are more critical than ever. And I want to focus on two overlooked benefits that they provide. One is tackling obesity and building community cohesion. First, let's consider the role of playgrounds in combating the epidemic of childhood obesity. The government has laid out two vital objectives in its preventative agenda: halving the gap in healthy life expectancy and creating the healthiest generation of children ever. Playgrounds directly contribute to these goals through their activity. What they do is they serve healthy food in many of these places, fruits and vegetables and hot meals. For some children that I know, these meals may be the only nutritious food that they receive daily. In communities where food insecurity is high, playgrounds are not just a place for fun, they are, without exaggeration, a lifeline. They ensure children can play and thrive, fueled by nourishment they desperately need. Without these spaces, our fight against obesity and related diseases becomes even harder. Secondly, in my constituency of Leicester South, this has borne out that adventure playgrounds foster something even more intangible, and that is community cohesion. Children unite whilst they're playing from all walks of life, breaking down race, class, and culture. Playgrounds remind us of our shared humanity in a world increasingly divided by polarization and conflict. As children play, they create these bonds, and as been mentioned by my honourable member, the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Children recognise this in Article 31, declaring play a critical human right. Unfortunately, this right is under threat. The number of playgrounds in the UK has fallen from 253 in 1980 to just 126 in 2021. Worse still, many of these playgrounds operate under limited hours, lacking resources, ensuring that children and the play workers don't create any meaningful bonds. Closer to home, I must raise the plight of two incredible adventure playgrounds in Leicester South, St Andrews and the Highfields Adventure Playground, where I played at as a child. Both are on the verge of shutting down, despite being in areas already scarce in provisions for young children. Highfields, in particular, is a pillar of its community for over half a century, and it still lacks secure tenureship. The loss of these playgrounds would tear the fabric of the communities and they serve. So please will the Minister meet with me to see if we can discuss to save these playgrounds. Thank you.
Ben Craft.
Thank you, Mrs. Luaba, and congratulations to the member for Bournemouth East for securing this debate today. Playgrounds are a vital part of local community infrastructure, and free access to outside local play space is something that all children should have the opportunity to enjoy. However, for disabled children and their families, this access is often not forthcoming, and it is this that I would like to briefly speak on today. As part of their Let's Play Fair campaign, Scope carried out polling looking at playground accessibility, finding that 1 in 10 disabled children have minimal or no access at all to their local playground. 1 in 7 could not enjoy the playground as a family, as siblings are unable to play together, and half of parents of disabled children said that there were some accessibility problems with their local playground. My oldest child is disabled. We have on many occasions visited playgrounds that are unsafe for her due to her disability. Sometimes we can make this work, however, there are times when we just can't. Structures are built in such a way that myself and my husband can't support her on them safely, while also supervising her sister, and there are no accessible alternatives to things such as swings, which is her absolute favourite activity. She gets extremely upset that she can't play, that she can't take part, and who can blame her? Why is my child being told that she is not good enough to play, that my family isn't welcome in this shared public space? The feeling of an asset that is for your community, not being for you and your family, is something that cuts deep. I know that my daughter will face challenges throughout her life, but being able to play, to be a child, should not be one of them. I'd like to address some of the misgivings about accessible playgrounds that exist. They do not necessarily need to cost more than non-accessible playgrounds. Retrofitting is expensive, but there is no reason why disabled children and their families are not being consulted about what they would need to make their new playground accessible. Indeed, there is even an argument that local authorities and other public bodies would be failing in their obligations under the Equality Act by not doing so. And accessible playgrounds are not exclusively for disabled children. Good accessible playgrounds are inclusive playgrounds. Excellent playgrounds allow access for disabled children while maintaining and providing challenge for non-disabled children as well. the Adventure Castle at Highlands Park in Chelmsford, the renovated playground at Wat Tyler Park in Basildon, and closer to home, Elm Road Open Space or the Manor in my patch provide accessible play equipment in a way that allows access for disabled and non-disabled children to play together. But these are few and far between, so I would like to ask the Minister to encourage all those who provide playgrounds to bake accessibility into them, talk to children and their parents, and make play spaces finally somewhere that all children and their families can enjoy.
Yaz Athwal.
Thank you. And can I commend the member for Bournemouth East, my honourable friend, for securing this debate. And Madam Chair, what a pleasure it is to serve under your chairmanship. Playgrounds are a vital resource providing local communities with free, accessible activity space for children. Not only do playgrounds support children's mental and physical development, they reduce loneliness, creating hubs for families to meet and socialise. Local families choose to put down their roots in Ilford South, thanks in large part to our excellent schools and fantastic parks. Almost a third of my constituents are children, so it's critical that their families have access to outdoor space and playgrounds. When I served as leader of Redbridge Council, I led a multi-million-pound investment programme into our playgrounds, delivering accessible equipment for local families to use. We knew that playgrounds and play spaces were as important for physical and mental well-being of children and families as local libraries, as well as serving as a leveller for all social groups to be together, regardless of background and socio-economic status.
On that point, will the honourable member give way?
Of course.
David Chadwick.
I'd like to thank him for giving way and thank the member for securing this debate. I have 2 children under 3, so I was delighted to come and contribute to this one. Does he agree with me that an extra benefit as well for investment in playgrounds is that they bring footfall into our town centres and nearby shops and cafes, thereby benefiting the local economy too? I have one such example in Brecon at the King George V playing field, which I hope will help to regenerate our town centre.
Thank you. And I absolutely agree, and the footfall is much needed in this day and age. And thanks to the investment, families can enjoy not only a free day out right on their doorstep, but local businesses benefit as well. It's important local authorities are empowered to fund play space for children, providing low-cost or free activities and space for families to gather. Giving access to play is vital for children and families, but this simply isn't reflected or even recognised in the legislation that is being put forward, where shockingly bats and newts are mentioned more than children. By enshrining protections for children's access to play in law, we can actively support children's development and ensure that children living in areas with less funding aren't disproportionately impacted. Introducing play sufficiency legislation is not simply about supporting children and families. It would also mark a significant step in improving equality, mental and physical health, and bringing England in step with Scotland. Whilst the country starts to recover from the unprecedented cost of living crisis, while fighting decline in public health and obesity epidemic, free and affordable play spaces which promote physical activity can and must play a critical role. Thank you.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Vicky Slade.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Mrs. Llewell Buck. Apologies, Llewell Buck. I want to congratulate my neighbour, my honourable neighbour, member for Bournemouth East, on securing this debate, which falls appropriately on the debate that we're debating, the Children's Wellbeing Bill. While we know that many of a child's social, developmental and exercise needs are met through their learning environment and their school, it would be a mistake to underestimate the importance of outdoor equipped play space. Trips to the park after school help children form strong bonds to help their resilience. But, it should also be said, also give parents important time outside of school and home and the chance to make good friends for life, as I can attest to with my friend Nikki, who I met 20 years ago when our daughters Molly and Becca got to know each other on the swings at Springdale Park. a park, incidentally, that has fantastic inclusive play, as it was constructed very close to the local children's hospice and consulted with the hospice in what they would need. In 2019, a Mumsnet survey, 1 in 4 parents said that a lack of outdoor play had contributed to their children's mental health issues. And that's before COVID saw them locked up and councils' financial crisis saw the gates stay locked when councils simply didn't have the money to fix the equipment. Lib Dems believe that playgrounds play a vital role in community engagement, child development and physical and mental health for children, young people and their families. And we welcome the Play England amendment to the National Planning Policy Framework that will protect play and lead all developers to fulfil their responsibilities. Residents in Wimborne, in my constituency of Mid Dorset and North Poole, have raised real concerns recently, and I think I have raised it before, actually, with the Minister, he's going to remember this, about promised play areas in their developments that turn out to just be a bench, a Teletubby hill and a dog bin. And then the residents have to pay extra to maintain the non-play area. As referenced by the Honourable Member for Bournemouth East, the last major play investment project was under the last Labour government Play Builder. But unfortunately, that equipment, as fantastic as it was, is now failing. And in 2023, The Guardian reported that the average budgets for parks had fallen in real terms by more than a third. In BCP, as already referenced, they have developed a plan for play with a vision to provide high-quality, accessible, safe, inclusive play. And I completely accept the criticism of the Honourable Member for Bournemouth about the equipment in Bournemouth, and I would just say that the previous Conservative-led Bournemouth Council did not bother to insure their play equipment, which meant that every time there was an act of vandalism, the community would have to pay to fix it. That cannot be allowed. As a result, the new Lib Dem-led council is now using £3.9 million of strategic community infrastructure fund to address this. In my own ward, we had a playground that was taken out in the 1980s, and the community worked together. Colin and Caroline put 2 years of work and more than £100,000 of money raised from the community with help from the council to reimagine their playground. But it shouldn't come down to that. Parishes and neighbourhood forums are able to do their bit, but until this is made a statutory requirement, it's impossible for councils that have statutory requirements for social services and housing to put this as a priority. Liberal Democrats would love to see the government work with councils on sustainable settlements that allow them to invest not just in the basics, but in activities to build happy lives for everyone. Every community needs play, and I agree with the Honourable Member for Ealing about considering girls and incidental play as well, especially when families have no gardens, where they have limited access to nature, and when the only safe place left is the park. If we want happy, healthy children to become resilient, problem-solving, active adults, we need to act now. I welcome the Minister becoming the next Andy Burnham and would love to see the Play Builder too. But this time, could we please have equipment that is fully inclusive for children with disabilities, neurodivergence, all ages and genders, sustainable and not be a one-off so the equipment doesn't have to be locked up again in 10 years' time?
Yeah. Opposition spokesperson, Paul Holmes.
Thank you very much, Mrs Lewell-Buck, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I congratulate the Honourable Member for Bournemouth East on securing this debate. I think his speech this afternoon has shown members in this House that he's half of Bournemouth are very lucky to have him, and he is lucky to have them too. And I know that he works very hard for his constituents, considering he's been an honourable friend for a number of years. Playgrounds are essential to the physical and mental well-being of our children. They are places where children exercise, build social connections and foster creativity. Yet the provision of playgrounds by local authorities remains uneven across the country, with concerning disparities that demand our attention. According to the Fields and Trust Group's Green Space Index, an alarming 2.3 million children in Britain under the age of 9, or 31% of the total, live more than a 10-minute walk from their nearest playground. Even more troubling is the fact that 40% of councils report over a third of children face this challenge, with some areas seeing this figure rise as high as 65%. This disparity reflects the struggles local authorities face in maintaining playgrounds. Budget constraints mean that some councils have been forced to remove or repurpose play areas, depriving communities of vital green spaces. Regional variations further highlight the inequality. For example, children in Scotland enjoy access to nearly 5 times more public playgrounds than their peers in London. Welsh children have access to over twice as many playgrounds compared to London. The previous government recognised the importance of improving access to quality green spaces. Initiatives like the £9 million Levelling Up Parks Fund and an additional £30 million of investment focused on improving facilities for young families. This funding aimed to enhance green spaces in deprived areas, support tree planting and improve play areas with up to £85,000 available per area. These measures were complemented by nearly £60 billion of funding for local authorities in 2024-25, a 9.4% increase compared to the year before, with most of this funding left unring-fenced to promote local choice. Mrs Lewell-Buck, the Conservative Party firmly believing in empowering local authorities to make decisions to best suit their communities. However, central government must also ensure that councils are equipped with sufficient resources to deliver essential services like playgrounds. The revised National Planning Policy Framework provides an opportunity here, and many members have outlined and I welcome the fact that that will now be included, but that needs to be enforceable under the MPPF. As the Liberal Democrat spokesman outlined, within my own constituency, which has seen excessive development, we often find that things are promised to local people by developers, and local authorities are not able to take the enforcement action necessary to be able to enforce those facilities to be built. That's something that I would look to the Minister to enforce through the MPPF and through regulatory SIs if need be, to make sure that local councils have the power to make sure that those services are provided. Unfortunately, challenges persist, however. The Local Government Association has estimated that the employers' national insurance contribution hike will cost councils £1.77 billion, yet only £515 million of new funding has been provided to support this increase. This shortfall puts further strain on local budgets, making it even harder to maintain and improve local playgrounds. And I must say to the Minister, and I hope he knows that I'm often trying to not be too political, but some of the decisions that were made in the last budget, including the decision to scrap private schools' charitable statuses, have meant that often facilities that are provided for local children in local areas by private schools will be taken out of service, and that will affect all kinds of children who are entitled to use those spaces through many of the playgrounds that private schools provide to them. Mrs Lawbuck, to wind up, the provision of playgrounds is about more than just swings and slides. It's about investing in our future, fostering healthier communities and ensuring that every child has the opportunity to thrive. I say to the Minister that we are willing to work together to protect and enhance these vital spaces, recognising their role in creating a fairer and healthier society. Thank you very much.
Minister Alex Norris.
Thank you, Mrs Lillbuck, and it's a pleasure to serve with you in the chair for the first time. I know that you are always fair, but also I know you can always be hard as well if needs be, but hopefully I will not stretch the chair's patience today. But I want to begin by thanking my honourable friend, the member for Bournemouth East, for securing this debate and for the way in which he's led it. He took us on a beautiful tour of Bournemouth. But also, I think the thing I enjoyed the most, that he really brought forward the views of his constituents into the room today and onto the record. And to get 640 responses to anything is really quite a thing. And I think that shows the amount of energy and interest in Bournemouth, but energy and interest clearly, judging by the contributions of colleagues, that is replicated across the country. Playgrounds are a vital part of our social infrastructure. They contribute, as we've heard, to the health and development of our children and young people across the nation. And for us, as important as a government, they build on our mission of opportunities for all by ensuring that everyone has the best start in life. And I want to pay special tribute to the parents that my honourable friend referenced in his speech and provide them for the insights that they have given to him and he's been able to give to us. But I also want to recognise the work of councillors Millie Earle, Sandra Moore, Andy Hadley, Rebecca Whelan-Edmonds and Barbara Uphoff in the work that they've done on a play strategy in Bournemouth. There's clearly something very special going on in this area in Bournemouth. And Councillor Sharon Carr-Brown for her work to improve the quality of play in her ward and beyond. And I also give thanks to Eugene Minogue and Play England for their work and clearly the support that they've given to Bournemouth and my honourable friend and their championing of the importance of play over the last 20 years. Now, the honourable gentleman's asked me some specific questions which I'll reference slightly later in my speech, but I did want to pick up on a couple of the themes as they also were echoed by colleagues. But first of all, to start with that principle that unstructured free play is really important in child development. Actually, in general, fun is important. You know, it's not all about development. It's something children have to be able to enjoy themselves, and we have to be able to make sure the spaces are there. And we have a really good, a very strong and able and technically evolved competitor for our children's education. And screen time has been part of this conversation. And the answer in these circumstances is never to smash the machines. We can't unlearn the technology, but we have to compete. So if the alternative is compelling, then our offer must be compelling. And I've got a couple of more points to make on that in a little bit. But particularly at a time like now, when cost of living challenges mean that parents are making very difficult choices, those offers have to be there and have to be accessible. And, you know, a theme that he said and a number of other colleagues have said is that this is also about social justice. For many in my community, the Bulwell Forest is their garden. They don't have the garden of their own. That is their play area. It was a point made by my honourable friend, the member for Ealing Southall. And play, as the member for Ilford South said, should be a great leveller, and parks should be a great leveller, accessible to all, just walk up and pitch in. But as my honourable friend, the member for Thurrock said, for children with a disability, that's not the case too often. Similarly, for my honourable friend, the member for Stafford, for children, neurodiverse children, that isn't always the case. And whatever plans we bring forward, we have to weave in that accessibility. We need to be seeking to tackle those inequalities. And you know, we know, and I'll make a few points in terms of where we are as a government, and again, as I say, address the questions from my honourable friend. But those early years of childhood are crucial for healthy development of our children, and physical activity is at the root of it. But we know, as the honourable gentleman for Leicester South says, we face a real challenge around childhood obesity, and we've got over 2 million children in this country not doing the 60 minutes of physical activity each day. What a problem that is coming down the line for us. And of course, I will meet with the honourable gentleman to talk about the adventure playgrounds in his community. And we know that this is a social justice issue, as said, because the levels of activities are lowest amongst the poorest children, the lowest amongst children from ethnic minority backgrounds, and the lowest amongst girls. And factors such as poverty, as lack of access to safe green spaces, and poor local natural resource contribute towards this inequality. And we know also, and this plays into the government's crime mission, that parents are increasingly concerned over the welfare of their children and concerns over antisocial behaviour. We have to make sure that we have the community policing to give that reassurance. So this needs to change. And active play is one of those key ways that we can make that change, get children exercising, get children stretching their mind, get children, as the honourable member for Epsom Ewell talked about, building those skills, problem solving, building resilience. All of those come through active play. So whether at adventure playgrounds, sports facilities, park playgrounds, the natural environment, all of those things need to be present and accessible for our children. And we have a lot, you know, we've got a lot of parks and green spaces in this country, 27,000 of them. These are much loved local assets and can be opportunities and for free. And that's, as has been said, reflects the cost of living. And the great thing in this, Mrs. Lulbuck, is that our children are telling us the answer. You know, as so often in politics, if we stop talking for long enough, generally people will tell us the answer. Because through the 2024 Children's People and Nature Survey for England, the single most important factor for encouraging children to go outside is access to playgrounds. So there you go. The answer's there already for us. That if we tear our hair out, why aren't our children out more often? And that does come up in debates, as other colleagues have said. Well, there we go. Access to playgrounds. Now, local authorities are at the root of this. 5 in 6 of every 6 of our urban parks are managed by local authorities. And my honourable friend, the member for Strangford, talked about community power. And I think that local authority connection to local communities is about empowering. I have no desire as the minister to be making granular decisions about play parks in Stoke, in Stockport, Bournemouth, Thurrock, Ealing, wherever. I've got very, very strong views about Nottingham. But my role, I see, as minister, is to get the powers and the resources to those communities to shape it for themselves. And again, the member for Epsom Ewell talked about some of the pressure that councils have been under in recent years. There's no doubt that this has been one of the areas. It's seen as a discretionary service, a non-statutory service, and as a result has very much, we've seen the decline that she talked about. You know, I am very proud that in the budget that we brought forward recently, significant, the best settlement for local government, significant resources were made available. And I think that will start to see some of those important services build back. I am very, very passionate, I could speak all day about the Green Flag Awards scheme, and I would like to give my thanks to Super Judge Chris Warman for the work he's doing. That is a really good way of making sure we have quality offerings, and there's over 2,000 of them in the UK. But we've novated in the department the Parks Working Group to build on that work, and Chris is playing a big part in that. And I'm going to ask the Parks Working Group to expand to make sure that play parks and playgrounds are part of that as well, so that we're making sure they're part of that conversation. We're tackling some of those inequalities and some of those accessibility issues as well. So to address the specific asks by my honourable friend, first of all, with regards to meeting with Eugene Minogue from Play England and to discuss these issues, of course, I'll be delighted to accept. I'll be very keen to meet his constituents, and having had the oral tour of Bournemouth, maybe I could have the physical one as well. I'd be very keen to do that. With regards to the 2008 play strategy, I'm going to very, very deftly sidestep any historical comparisons to individual politicians. But what I will say is that the work that we're doing as part of our opportunities government mission, we're working with sector experts around play provision, and we will build from what's come in the past. And I think, I steal liberally from what's been done before. I think often there's not much that's genuinely new. So we will be building off that, and we will be making significant reference to that in our work, but of course making it fit for the modern day. And I think we're going to take a similar approach with regards to place sufficiency legislation. I want to follow the evidence a little bit with the experts and communities. I want to understand a little bit more about Scotland and Wales as well, because there is clearly a distinction and a difference, and whether law could augment that. But I wouldn't want to run ahead of having done that bit of work. With regards to sports fields, that my officials are working with officials in DCMS to look further into this, and I will keep the honourable member updated with that. And then the final ask with regards to mapping play facilities, we want to get that burden right on local authorities in terms of not putting too much onto them, but we are looking at other ways in which, because actually I think the goal is a very important one, because it tells us, we do know that one of the biggest driving factors beyond quality is distance, and I always my community is a former mining community, so we have lots of country parks. People think, oh, you're very well provided for. The gates are never on our side, and that's something of great frustration. So it's making sure that we do know what those distances are and access. And again, there's a significant correlation between mental health across the population and the distance to green and open spaces. So one of the ways, perhaps, rather than asking local authorities to do it, last August, the Office of National Statistics have entered into this space on access to green space for the first time, and we're committed to further refining this work to make sure it's doing that job. Similarly, the Green Flag Award Scheme does, provide a bit of a map of its own in terms of where facilities are and where the highest quality ones are. So we're very keen to make sure that we do get that mapping right, and we do understand that equity piece, and we do understand which communities may need greater support. So I'm conscious that the honourable gentleman will need some time to wind up. I'm very much looking forward to meeting him and his constituents, and I'm very much looking forward to working with colleagues in the spirit that the opposition spokesperson used, and indeed other colleagues did throughout the debate. Thank you.
Tom Hayes to wind up.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank the members who have spoken in this debate, particularly the honourable members for Stafford, for Strangford, Ealing South Hall, Howes Owen, Leicester South, Thurrock, Ilford South, Brecon, Radnor, Quumtwe. Oh, he's gone, so in which case, if I've mispronounced it, I apologise. And everybody else who has spoken. I thank the Conservative and Liberal Democrat spokespeople and the Minister for his comments. In bringing this debate forward, I wanted to make sure that the people of Bournemouth East were heard. As the Minister was saying, the fact that 642 local residents responded to that survey shows that there's enormous appetite for something better when it comes to play. And I just wanted to communicate to the people of Bournemouth East that their priority will be my priority, and very clearly from what we've heard from the Minister, the government's priority. Because if we don't invest in our children by investing in our play, then we're sending entirely the wrong signals. And after all our children all over our country deserve nothing less than the very best childhood. Thank you.
Yeah. The question is that this House has considered the provision of playgrounds by local authorities. As many are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting has adjourned.